Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and all the guests present here. Welcome to the educational session organized by Gabby's Toastmasters Club. I'm sure you all are as excited as I am for getting educated about the roles and responsibilities of specific things. Before I start the meeting, I have few points to highlight. Your video should be on and audio should be off. Audio should be on only when you are need to speak or supposed to speak. Regarding the topics of sex, religion, and politics, even though Toastmasters International does not put any restriction on speaking on these topics, we at Gabby's Toastmasters Club request all the speakers, role players, and guests to be mindful of and responsible to and abstain from expressing any controversial views on these sensitive topics. I also urge you to be cognizant of the fact that we as a club practice diversity and inclusion both in letter and in spirit, hence ensuring there should be no sexist, racist, and any other such undertone that creates hostility and discomfort among the members and the guests. Now, let me call upon the stage now let me call upon someone who is a teacher, trainer, and a coach in the domain of construction, who has trained over 7,500 plus professionals in last decade and has impacted 500 plus professional lives. The current division director of Division B District 92. He is none other than distinguished Toastmaster Nagesh Ramamurthy. Can we give a huge round of applause for distinguished Toastmaster Nagesh? The stage is all yours, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for opening the meeting. That was Sergeant at Arms, Toastmaster Manavi Kumar. Give her a huge round of applause. Let's directly get into the session that we are all trying to meet here for. Why meeting roles are so very important. And today, while I'm talking about the meeting roles, there are three areas of meeting roles that I would take over. Beyond that, I will have my club colleagues, those DTM Nancy Goyal, and later on DTM Saurav Datta, who will pick up few other roles and we'll talk about it in turns. I want to ask you all, when you walked into this particular meeting, what is it that you had in mind? Anyone wants to unmute and let me know. What did you come to this meeting with?
There was a message shared by DTM Saurav, I think 2-3 days back, that for our last few meetings, we've been having GEs from the other clubs. So whatever feedback they have been giving on the way we are conducting, that is what made me think about coming over here, because we are taking the roles for the first time. And so it will be an enlightening kind of a session to know where we are going wrong and what are the strengths that are happening. That is what I am here for.
Okay, that is the objective you had in mind when you came into this particular meeting, right? That after this meeting, I get to know about a few things about what okay. My question, let me rephrase. What was on your mind just when you were entering the room? Anyone?
May I? This is
Yes,
Gauri.
yes, Gauri.
So two reasons why I came in here. One, I've just begun my Toastmasters journey, and to know that how when I take up these roles, what is expected of me and what is the right way to go about the roles. And secondly, being a trainer and a consultant outside, um, these roles also would help me in my trainings. It's like for a general evaluator, how do I we know by now that the feedback should be a constructive feedback, but how do you actually go on to molding your words, our counter, how do you when I'm training, how do I manage that, and how do I put across that point nicely to my audience and participants?
Okay. Got that. Anyone else who wants to share what you had in your mind when you walked into this meeting?
Hello, folks. This is Kunjan from Walmart Toastmaster IDC. And so, couple of days back, I got a invitation. I mean, I got to know that okay, some meetings where we can get to know what are these roles and how well these roles can be played. I am also started this Toastmaster journey. I'm a very beginner, so I really want to explore these roles, like what responsibilities are there, what being as a role taker, what responsibilities are there, how best we can evaluate as a timer or a aha counter or a gremlin, whatever. So that's the agenda I thought in my mind, and hence I joined.
Mhm.
So looking forward that all this information useful by tips and tricks, pros tips I can get, and in future definitely I will be without hesitating. I will able to take up these roles.
Fantastic. I like that. Thank you so much, Toastmaster Gunjan. That was Gunjan from Walmart. I have Toastmaster Noor Mohammed who has raised their hand. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, all. So, the first feeling what I have when I join the meeting is that I'm going to have a great time. So,
Mm,
this is the feeling with which I come to any meeting. I'm going to get a different perspective to look at things. So, having a great time is very important for me. Yeah. Back to you, sir.
thank you so much. Now I'll go back to DTM Nancy. What was on your mind when you joined the meeting?
Who's going to open the meeting room?
Ah, okay. And anything else?
If the meeting link is working fine, if people are there in the room, or did we spread the message? Are they going to remember that this is the time they want to join? So, yes, these things were running in my mind before I joined the meeting.
Fantastic. This is what I was kind of looking at. People come on camera now. Let me see whom am I talking to. Thank you, Anshu, for turning on your camera. Others also, please come on camera. Why did I ask this question? Many times, what happens is, as we are entering a meeting room, we have a lot of other thoughts with which we walk into the room. Will it end on time? Will there be people in the meeting room? Will I find a friend in the meeting? Will my speech go well? Will my evaluator be very, very comfortable with my speech? Will he give me a positive evaluation? I hope I clear the objective. I wish I will not have more uhs and ums today. Or shall I get up in the middle of the meeting and go away? I need to catch a metro. There are so many things. Is my mobile on silent? What if I don't reach on time back home? There's so many things that keeps running in our mind as we enter the meeting room. I tell two things to people. First one is all the worries, problems, challenges, issues, leave it outside the door and come in. Because when you go back, they will be still waiting for you. As Nur Muhammad said, come here, have fun, enjoy in a Toastmasters meeting. My mentor told me these are the active filters that we have in our mind with which we come in. And the first person to open the meeting is Sergeant at Arms, whose primary job is to remove all these active filters from your mind and prepare you for the meeting that's going to unfold for you. That is Sergeant at Arms for you. That's why that person is somebody who always, every time, opens the meeting and gives you that energy that he or she carries passes it on to you. One of the more major objective of a sergeant at arms is to open the meeting with great energy so that everybody gravitates towards that energy, and you are in a situation that entire meeting is going to be so energetic. Remove that active filter. That's the primary role of a sergeant at arms when meeting room is opened. What does this bring? What does this role bring to the table for the sergeant at arms? When I took up the first officer role, I got it. When I took this first officer role, I think 2.5 months into the Toastmasters, I said I will take that role because this is a person who gets 2 minutes or 3 minutes of speaking time in every meeting. 26 meetings or 25 meetings in 6 months. This person is the person who gets so much of stage time. But why? What else does this person benefit from as a sergeant at arms? Now, a sergeant at arms, I also tell this to people when I tell next term, take sergeant at arms. Because once you finish 6 months of sergeant at arms tenure, you become an effective event manager. You become an effective event manager. In Toastmasters, you run 26 meetings and see that you can alone manage a large event outside Toastmasters. Such is the role, skills that this role gets. Why? You learn a lot of coordination with people. You learn a lot of attentiveness, a lot of eye to details in running this particular meeting. You make friends with new people who join as guests. Before the meeting, you talk to them, do small talks with them to break the ice with them. And after the meeting, sometimes socialize with them and say something like, "Thank you for joining us. It was good seeing you. Hope to see you in the next event." Things like that. So you talk to the guests, break the ice with them, socialize with them, and see them off. It's like you are the host of the meeting as the opening speaker of the meeting. So you learn the skill of small talks. You also become a tech savvy person. I'll come to that in the third section of this particular meeting. So in an online setup, you entirely take care of the online tool on which the meeting runs. So even if you're not tech savvy, by the time you finish 1.5, 2 months of your role, see how much of tech savviness comes into you as a skill. That's why I said you are an entire event manager package once you finish your SAA role and come out. What more responsibility does this particular SAA role brings in? You are the custodian of entire assets of the club. Yes, you are the property owner of the club materials. In a physical setup, a lot of people have display of trophies, the guest books, the ribbons, and so many other physical things. There are cards, there are bells, there are books, there are stationery. You are the owner of all these. You see in each meeting, they are kept at appropriate places, distributed to appropriate role takers. And after the meeting is over, you collect all of them and keep it safely for the use of the next meeting. Coming to the online setup, you do the similar thing, but the biggest asset of an online club are two of them. One is this tool on which the meeting runs. It could be Zoom, it could be Team, it could be any other platform on which the meeting runs. You have to see that this tool is running very efficiently, effectively, and is updated to the standards whenever there is a version release. Second biggest asset of any online club, even offline club, is the website of the club. So Sergeant at Arms takes care of all these tangible and intangible assets of the club. So you become more responsible. The responsibility of being responsible comes in this particular role. As I have already mentioned, you greet the guest, you become the host, and to be very hospitable is something that you learn in this particular role. Talking about a little more about the Zoom, opening the meeting before time, doing the AV tests, sharing the templates, the guidelines, and all to the members and the guests is something which is part of to see if the assets is running fine, right? So you do even those things. Specifically to the club that we are talking in, there is one additional asset that we have, that is the recording of any meeting. Once it is recorded and stored in a place, that becomes an asset to the organization, isn't it? So is it parked at the right place? Do right people have access to it? Is it published at appropriate manner, at appropriate times or scheduled times? Is also part of the asset management that the Sergeant at Arms takes care of it. Now, those of you who remember the oath that you took when you were taking the office of Sergeant at Arms, there are a couple of things that I want to reiterate and highlight that. One is you will start the meeting, you will help the presiding officer or the president of the club to start the meeting on time. So many a times we see that Sergeant at Arms is prompted saying that now it is 6 o'clock, you can start. The time now is 7 p.m. Sergeant at Arms, we are good to go. So these prompts need not be given to the Sergeant at Arms. It has to automatically get ingrained into you that meeting has to start on time, for which you will have to do small little checks in the beginning to see if for next 10-15 minutes, do we have the roll takers? Do we have the presiding officer there? Do we have the TMOD there? Do we have the general evaluator that will take care of about 15-20 minutes of your meeting? You can start the meeting on time after these small little checks. Next, what is more important is, I started with this. I, by mistake, told you active filters. It is effective filters. Please, those of you who are noting it down, change it to effective filters. You start the meeting with great energy. You are in a zone which is not so very energetic, but when you start the meeting, you start it with a very high energy and try to pass on with it to all those people who are listening to you and looking at you. So you bring in that energy. Another checkbox that is required, which our Toastmaster Manvi also did, is to talk about the rules of the meeting, bringing the meeting to order by giving those rules. The rules were stated by Toastmaster Manvi today. Every club has got few additional rules and regulations. I have seen that happening in the physical clubs. If you have some specific club related rules, please do state that. So checking the box on the rules. Thirdly, but not the last, and most importantly, is handing over the stage to the next person, that is the presiding officer or the president. Handing over has to happen by introducing that person and then handing it over. Many a times we have seen that the introduction of the presiding officer for 26 weeks is something that we hear for 26 weeks. So here is a skill that you learn as a sergeant at arms, that you learn to introduce the presiding officer or the president 26 different ways. A lot of time you are given a script about the presiding officer and we come and read it. Why not take about 2 or 3 minutes, paraphrase it, rewrite it in your own words, adding pauses, emphasis, and other literary devices to elevate the presence of the presiding officer and introduce him and hand over the stage. So you learn writing skills there. Recently, we also heard from one of the general evaluator, which I also used to follow, that talk to the friends and family members of the presiding officer and try to get some insights about him and introduce him to the club, which is something very, very new that, or the first time that everybody would be hearing. That also can be done. I will tell you as a sergeant at arms what I did. I gave a checklist to my presiding officer telling him 26 points, fill up the blanks. Just one word, color, favorite place, favorite food, favorite subject, things like that. I had given him one word, he had to fill another word for 26 points. He gave it to me within the first week of my tenure in the office. And I, looking at the theme, picked one of them, elaborated and wrote it in my own words to introduce the president. Many skills that can be learned as a sergeant at arms. A key and important role that this particular role brings into people. While I pause to pick up a glass of water, if there is any questions on Sergeant at Arms, I'll be good to answer. Anyone? Yes, Toastmaster Sharon. Go ahead, please.
You said speak to the family or friend to get to know about the person you're going to introduce. How is that possible?
Okay. You are in a WhatsApp group where all your club members are there, correct?
Okay.
You know from the agenda that, let's say, Manvi is the presiding officer in the meeting where you are the sergeant at arms.
Okay.
Reach out to 2 or 3 people in the WhatsApp group privately and ask about her. Get inputs about Manvi. Use that to introduce her. Possible?
Yeah, possible.
Okay. Now you must be wondering how do I reach out to the family members, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll answer that as well. You can tell the presiding officer, you have given me so much of information. I don't want to introduce you in a regular mundane manner. Can I talk to your family member? It had happened to me, one of my evaluator, one of my TMOD had called up my family and said, I need to introduce Nagesh on this Friday meeting. Can I get few lines from you? He had talked to my wife. I had given the phone to her and she picked up a few things which I didn't know about and she introduced me in the club meeting. So what happened? You have made one more acquaintance with my family. That's a new skill that you learn by meeting new people, talking to new people, isn't it? Somebody whom you have never met and you spoke to them.
Yes. I
That's
must try that.
Yeah, that's how you can reach people, build your network, build your association. Look at the opportunities that it brings you.
Thank you.
Any other question I can answer? Okay, let's move on. Physical meetings is very, there is an important ritual in physical meeting. Those of you who are in this meeting from a physical Toastmaster club, and those of you who are online but go to a physical meeting, the important ritual is handing over of the stage. In Toastmasters, stage is a sacred place of learning. We don't leave that stage alone. Whenever we hand over the stage to the next person, you wait for the next person to walk in, shake hands with that person, and then you walk out, irrespective of any role that you are taking. So in this particular case, we started with Sergeant at Arms. Sergeant at Arms hands over the stage to the presiding officer or the president of the club, right? So in a physical meeting, shake hand happens and then the exit happens. And this ritual continues throughout the meeting when the stage is being given to other Toastmasters or guests, right? Please don't leave this ritual anytime. It is something that is ingrained in us, and we have to continue this. Now, coming to the presiding officer and his responsibilities. There are two, I want to give you an analogy here. Imagine the Prime Minister of the country standing at the Red Fort addressing his citizens, right? The President of the country standing in the Republic Day parade before it starts, addresses the nation, right? Before the parade starts. The meeting in any organized meeting in an organization, there is the head of the organization who addresses his colleagues, right? If you imagine that, the presiding officer's role is just that. You address your club members. You address the gathering, including which also includes the guest. We don't call it as presidential speech. We say presidential address. Presiding officer's address. He addresses the club. It is not a speech. So the presiding officer, when he stands there, he talks in a manner that he is addressing the gathering with few or three inputs that are very much essential. What are those? First, greetings, welcome, any theme or topic that he wants to talk about and give it as a message to the gathering. Announcements, right? So these are 4 or 5 things that he or she has to necessarily do it in a presidential address. Usually, Sergeant at Arms role is for maximum 2 minutes. Some clubs also allow it to 2.5 minutes, whereas presidential address, depending upon the agenda, is about 5 minutes. So you have initial few minutes for greetings, welcoming, calling the guests and talking to them, then your presidential address, and lastly, what happens is you are handing it over to the next person. Before moving on there, I would like to again go to the roles and responsibilities that is as an oath the president would have taken. Just give me a moment. Let me open it. Okay. There is a line here which says, you as a head of this club will create a climate that is supportive, stimulating, and rewarding for the club members. Very important. You when you're addressing, it should come as a very friendly manner, a tone which is very welcoming, A tone and tenure in your words. Use the choice of words which people should feel that you are very supportive. Very, very important. It should, you're not coming with the position of authority, you're coming with a position of servant leadership. You're here to serve the club members, right? So choice of word, the tone and tenure of your address should be in a manner that it should depict that you are very, very supportive. Very key in a presidential address. Now, one last thing I would want again to talk about the handover to the next role, that is the handing it over to the Toastmaster of the day. Again, same rule applies that if a member of a club is taking up the role of Toastmaster of the day, we all know about that person. If Nagesh Ramamurthy is taking the role of a TMOD, is there anybody who doesn't know me and my introduction, which is there in the website also? Or it has been read so many times, you all know it by heart by now, right? So why not make it a little different? Why not make it, add something to it? If you have interacted with the TMOD, how did that interaction came up with? Can you describe that person differently? Bring those skills, learn those skills when you're introducing somebody. The president also can do that learning in his particular role. Okay, that's about the role of presiding officer or the president in the meeting. There are other roles that SAA and presiding officer do as the executive committee member. I'm not talking about that. As a meeting role is what I described here. Any questions? DTM Nancy, please chime in case I have missed anything.
We have covered everything regarding you.
Okay, anything, any questions you all have?
Questions can we take towards the end? We have already spent 30 minutes and
Yeah,
1 minute.
yeah. Can I address the Zoom moderator later on? Since I've come to TMOD, can I hand over the stage to you?
Okay, all right. I
Over to
thought
you.
you're leaving.
No, I have still a little more time. I can come back when you are done.
All right. Thank you so much, DTM Nagesh. I'll be covering 3 rules primarily, the main rules in a meeting that most of us have seen feel dreadful regarding the same. TMOD, TTM, and General Evaluator. For newbies, people who are extremely new to the meetings, to any of the clubs, you would have seen people taking command as Toastmaster of the Day. So I'll not use the abbreviations. Toastmaster of the Day, General Evaluator, and Table Topic Master. These are the 3 main roles. I just want to check how many of you have played all 3 roles till date. By raise of hands. No one? Okay, at least one role.
Yes, this is Kunjan. I have
Yes,
played
Kunjan.
one role since it's my journey has been begin in the Toastmaster. So far, I've played one role, that is the Toastmaster of the day.
Okay, good.
Last week only, I had got an opportunity to play this role within my team.
Could you
Okay.
just repeat the question? There was a lag. I missed the question.
How many of you have played at least one of the 3 main roles? GE, TTM, TMOD, Toastmaster of the Day, Table Topic Master, or General Evaluator? All right, I see a couple of you raising your hands. For those of you who haven't raised your hands, I assume you haven't played any of these roles so far. So you can, yes, Manoj also raising his hand, and Meeta. Many more people raising their hands. It's good if you have played this role. And in case you haven't played any of these roles, you can start afresh. But before I talk about what to do or what not to do during these roles, I want you to first help me answer, why do we need to play these roles? What is it that we gain from these roles? Let's start with Table Topic Master. What do you think that we learn when we play Table Topic Master? A table topic master is someone who gives topics for others to speak, to practice their impromptu speeches. What do you gain as table topic master? Yogita, did you raise your hand to answer the question?
Yes, I did got an opportunity earlier in the speech crafted session to play this role. So, what I have learned from it, like while I was writing down those topics, I also had a moment to think and understand what I will have to say if I'm speaking for the topic or against the topic. What could be the possible views, and in what all directions can it go? So, definitely my thinking evolved. And yes, so some topics which I found easy, I even said, no, 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 these would be so much, not too good for people who would be coming. And so, yes, it definitely uplifts your mood when you're writing those table topics because it makes you think out of the box. And
Lovely, lovely.
I had an opinion on all the table topics that I had devised. For me, that was the learning.
Okay. So what I understand from your learning is that your mind was opened up to multiple perspectives the moment you started writing down those topics. Yes, Gauri.
So I got a chance to be the table topic master, and what I learned was how I can help people to speak up, introverts, or how you can help them to speak up and give topics according to their interest or what my understanding of them is.
So if I keep the intuition to help others aside, you learned spontaneity. You understood whether the speaker would be able to take this topic or not. In case the speaker is not able to take that topic, you want to quickly change the topic or how to address that particular situation to encourage others, to uplift others. It made you become more spontaneous for the given roles. That spontaneity is one, opening up your mind for different perspectives, having different horizons to the same thought. Again, another. Third, most important skill that you learn is active listening skill. And fourth is impromptu speaking. When I say impromptu speaking, what this role entails is whenever you are giving out topics to others, you need to ensure, you first need to ensure whether the person is able to speak up on the topic or not. Immediately, you need to understand this and change the topic if required, because a TTM's role is to encourage speakers to speak impromptu. This is something we all feel dreadful about. So, how we can uplift others. But at the same time, when someone is attempting a topic, you as table topic master is actively listening to the topic itself and summarize. So when you're summarizing, you're speaking impromptu. That's your thought. These are the skills that we learn as table topic master. Now, what are the do's and don'ts? One, we have already covered. Be very, very encouraging towards the speakers. Your job as table topic master is not to put others down. There are some table topic masters who come to the meeting with the most difficult questions ever. Yet, that's not how a table topic master should appear as. A table topic master should be very friendly. I understand in Gabby's, we have a couple of people who give difficult topics to DTMs here, which is completely okay, friendly environment. But this shouldn't be a practice for everyone, and especially people who are unknown to you. Be very, very encouraging towards the speakers, because this is one skill that we are here to develop, not to feel completely dreadful about and never ever, in a state where we don't want to speak at all again. So this is your role as table topic master, to uplift others through your topics. Second, keep your topics simple. When I say simple, not just in terms of quotes or thoughts, but also the topic shouldn't be extremely long, that you are eating up most of the time repeating those topics and the speaker is not able to understand the topic at all. So it's a good practice to keep your topics simple and short. Another general practice that is good to have as a TTM is to put down the topics in the chat box. One of the things that I have noticed so far is when we say active listening, is important for a table topic master. Most of the table topic masters, they give the topic, then they start looking here and there on screen. Maybe someone is dropping them a chat message, or someone is telling them about the time or whatnot. Whenever we say active listening, your active listening is also through your body language. So lend your ear to the speaker who's speaking. As table topic master, it's extremely important for you to lend your ear to the speaker. So listen even using your body language. Last but not the least, sometimes we have less time for the TT section, table topic section. Sometimes we have more. So here again, your spontaneity matters. You be prepared with more topics so that you are able to handle more questions, more people if need be. At the same time, if you have got less people and many people raising their, sorry, if you have got less participants because of time, so you need to address rest of the audience, or at least say one liner or two liner as soon as you are picking up a volunteer, apart from the one who has raised their hand. I'll first pick up the guest, then I'll come to you, Toastmaster Jasprit. Or I'll first go for Toastmaster Yogita, since she raised her hand first. I'll come back to you, Gauri. That way, you are giving respect to the people who are volunteering for the same instead of ignoring them. So this one liner is very important when you are handling the audience as a whole. These are a couple of tips, the do's and don'ts of a table topic master role that are there at the top of my mind. Next is general evaluator role. What do you learn when you are taking up the role of a general evaluator? Quickly. Nothing? Or
It's not
nobody has attempted? Yes.
not what you say, it's how you say it is what we learn from the general evaluator.
Constructive feedback. It's not what you say, but how you say it. Lovely. Yes, Anshu.
I think first is again listening skills, and next we pay attention to what a good speech should be. In turn, improving our own structures when we speak.
Lovely. Yes, when we are listening to so many different speakers, not only we are just listening to them for the feedback that we need to provide, but we are also understanding what they have done right. So that gives us some information on how we can do our speeches better and another perspective to our own speeches. Yes. What else?
Super attentive for every role, like even for the roles like grammarian and everything. Even if they make a mistake, you also need to keep a note.
Lovely. In a world where attention span is for 5 to 7 seconds, or thanks to Reels, it's not more than 30 seconds. We are listening to the entire meeting actively for 2 hours. The attention span grows by leaps and bounds. This is the only role where you are extremely attentive for the entire meeting, end to end. So this is what you learn as general evaluator. You learn to give how to give a constructive feedback. You learn how to clinically evaluate the other role takers, the role takers which are there in the meeting. You learn to increase your attention span, and you also learn different perspectives since you're actively listening to different people in the meeting. Now, what are the do's and don'ts of a general evaluator? The first and foremost, when you are general evaluator for the meeting, your role is not only to observe to make points for the meeting roles itself. Many general evaluators, the good ones that I have observed in my tenure, is they generally talk about how the PR went, how they were given hints, they were given introductions, and they were given all the resources on time, how the agenda came out well. So your role is also to observe if it's possible for you for that particular meeting. It's also to observe what goes before the meeting as well as what goes during the meeting. That's one. Second, your feedback, as much as it's important for you to be critical about certain things to help others improve, be very, very constructive. When we say constructive, at the end of the day, your feedback should be there to uplift others, to encourage others. Now, for the role of general evaluator, I've seen many people taking up this role and speaking for a long, long time as general evaluator, talking about what went well and repeating the same things. If you don't have anything valuable to share, I would rather suggest that don't share at all. Talk rather one point and move on to the next role. You don't have to speak for everything, even if you don't have content for that. You're doing more harm if you are speaking just anything. So treat your role well. Talk about the points which are adding value. Sometimes we have got more points than what we can cover during the meeting itself. So if you have got more points, weigh down those points and see which one will add more value. Something that we also follow for evaluator role, we will follow for general evaluator role as well. Another thing is when it comes to evaluation section specifically, I've seen some of the general evaluators evaluating the speaker more than they are evaluating the evaluator. Now, this is a big no-no. When you have an evaluator for the speaker, your job as a general evaluator is to evaluate the evaluator. If the evaluator is doing a good job, you pass your comments for the evaluator, maybe one comment or so for the speaker, but more on the evaluator, because evaluator will improve only through your evaluation of the evaluation that the evaluator has provided. In case the evaluator is not doing a good job, let us suppose the evaluator is coming up on stage and just sharing some random points which are not making much sense, or sometimes the evaluators are nasty enough to discourage the speaker. At that point in time, it becomes your job as general evaluator to encourage the speaker with the positive points, and you provide some good evaluation to the speaker. So evaluate the speaker only if there's a need. Otherwise, leave that to the evaluator itself and you evaluate the evaluator. One of the general mistakes I have seen by the general evaluators is that they come to the meeting and then they will write it to the host or co-host asking, oh, you have this practice in the meeting. Why is it team or reading the project objectives? These things should be told to general evaluator before the meeting. At least at Gabby's, we have this practice of sharing a briefing, role briefing with the general evaluator. But in case these have not been told, it's also good practice for the general evaluator to call up the VP education of the meeting and ask them what is the flow of the meeting. Many of the clubs within District 92, outside District 92, I've seen they've got different kind of structures. And in fact, if it's an advanced club, they have completely different structure for the meeting. So it's always a good practice to understand the meeting structure, even if you have been a general evaluator for umpteenth time. So for many of you who are saying that you are new here, this is how you can get started. Connect with the VP education and understand the nuances of the meeting before you get into the meeting as general evaluator. That's about the general evaluator role, the do's and don'ts. Moving on with the last role that I have with me, Toastmaster of the Day role. What is it that we learn with the module?
Managing end-to-end meeting, basically to how to host a meeting.
How to host the meeting? Yes, you being the MC of the entire meeting, you host the entire meeting. What else?
How to make the meeting interesting for everyone, because
How to
many are
make
the times the team chooses a topic which is just connecting to him, not to everyone else. So the other members find it kind of boring. and that's when I feel like the meeting is not working out.
Absolutely. How to have a meeting for others, not just for yourself, where you can engage the audience with different activities or with interesting content, intriguing content. Lovely. That's another skill that you develop, how to cater to the audience, research your audience beforehand, and then choose a topic. Yes, Saju?
Smooth transition from one segment to the other.
Smooth transition from one segment to the other. We might have many hiccups during the meeting, and you, as Toastmaster of the day, are the key person who would have a regular, normal face with a smile and transition smoothly to different sections, no matter what's going behind the scenes. Yes, Gauri.
Actually, you just covered it. Managing yourself is also what you learn being the team mod because you're so long there speaking, so many things can go wrong.
Absolutely.
Awkward
Many
moments, or
things.
things like that.
Trust me, I've faced so many awkward moments, but after doing this role for so many times, I have somehow learned to handle a few of the awkward moments. Still, life surprises me. Teamod role surprises me every time I take it up. Anshu, Manvi?
Yes, managing the time frame of the meeting.
Managing the time of the meeting, very, very important. That's what you learn. Time management is primarily your responsibility, even if others are not on time. Yes, Manvi.
Anshu already spoke about it.
Okay, great minds think alike. Um, we have almost covered most of the learnings that we have as Toastmaster of the day. First is how you can engage the audience, how to have an interesting theme, intriguing theme for people to come to the meeting. Second, you learn time management because it's primarily your role job to handle the entire meeting and ensure that it's getting over on time. Then you being the MC of the meeting, the introduction of the rule takers, the entire meeting handling is your responsibility. Then you also learn spontaneity because some of the people in the audience, they might throw you off with their questions. And that way, you understand how to be extremely spontaneous in answering those questions. I have a question from Iona. Is there a script for the different roles? We do have scripts generally provided by Toastmasters International, specifically for introduction of these roles. But when it comes to roles like Toastmaster of the Day, we do have a structure that we give to the Toastmaster of the Day as VP Education of the club. But if the theme is something that you're choosing, the script is what you need to write on your. I hope that answers your question, TTM Iona. All right. So yes, coming to Yogita, is your question related to Toastmaster of the Day role?
Yes, yes.
Okay, tell me.
So I just wanted to understand. So the theme, like I had attended a few meetings, so I analyzed that the theme that have been selected by the people, they were distributed evenly for the starting, and then after that 5 minutes break, again the TMOD will share some facts, and then we would proceed with the meeting. I just wanted to understand what is the time limit and what all points do we
Okay.
need to share.
Okay, so I'll first cover the do's and don'ts of a team mod role, and then if that gets answered, if your question gets answered within that, that's good. Otherwise, I'll take it separately. Okay. All right. So we learned about why do we need to, what do we learn with the team mod role? Now coming to some do's and don'ts of the team mod role. First thing first, since you are the MC of the entire meeting, the the role taker's introduction, the resources and other things becomes your prime responsibility. I'll tell you what do we do at Gabby's here. At the Gabby's, we have got Sergeant at Arms handling the meeting introduction, the role introduction, the resources and other things. But in case this is not a practice at your club, ensure as Toastmaster of the day, you are ensuring that you have everyone's introduction ready with you. That's one thing. Second, when you're choosing a theme should be intriguing. When I say intriguing, it shouldn't be as simple as procrastination. Now, procrastination is a theme that has been beaten to death. Or if I talk about a theme like New Year resolution during New Year's, every meeting that was happening across the globe, they had the same theme. So during that point in time, if you want audience to come to your meeting, listen to you, have something interesting, something different from what others are doing. So that's how you generate interest in the meeting. And you're not only doing the meeting for yourself, but for others, as Toastmaster Shubhang mentioned. Try to create some sort of interest by using certain phrases. For example, we have a meeting themed, let's slurp and burp tomorrow. In case you want to understand whether slurping and burping is good, mostly it's told that it's not good, but our Toastmaster of the day is going to talk about how it's good. So if you want to learn about that, you would definitely you will definitely be interested to join the meet. So try to generate interest using certain phrases, try to generate interest with random things which nobody has heard of or which is not that common. For example, we had themes like pareidolia, paraprosdokians. This is something that we haven't heard of. And there was another theme, Strumfrey, recently taken up by distinguished Toastmaster Saurav Datta. So if you have themes which are not commonly known to others, people will come to your meeting and you will be the showstopper as Toastmaster of the day. Another important point for Toastmaster of the day is your job is not only time management, but also to give stage to others. So when you're giving stage to others, you ensure that you are not there just to shine. Just because you have written a script for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, you want to cover all of it. And no matter the meeting is going haywire, you want to shine. Eating everyone else's time is not what you should do as Toastmaster of the day. A good Toastmaster of the day is one who ensures that everyone gets ample time. In case the meeting is going over time, you cut down, you be spontaneous there. You cut down your content and then go ahead with the meeting. Because at the end of the day, if your meeting is planned for 2 hours and you are extending the meeting for 2.5 hours, no matter how interesting your theme is, your audience has got other commitments. And yes, the affective filters that were there before the meeting, they will start kicking in right after 2 hours. So your all interesting factors will go out of the picture and you will lose your audience. So that's your job to ensure that you are letting others shine, keeping your script to the minimal if need be. And sometimes there are certain situations where you don't have someone turning up. Now there you have to fill time. So keep the fillers also ready with you. If need be, you need to fill in with more time. In Toastmasters meetings, we do have table topic section, so you can be saved during that time by filling in more table topics during the TT session. However, that situation might not always arrive before TT session, so keep your fillers ready. I remember one of the meetings where I was a team mod, one of the speakers didn't turn up despite calling up so many times. I just had no clue whether the speaker would join or not. So that point in time, I was having 10 minutes at hand. How to handle those 10 minutes? I was not prepared. So these kind of situations might occur anytime. Be prepared. Last but not the least, it shouldn't be a monologue when you are taking up team model. Ensure that you are engaging your audience with some sort of questions, some sort of activities, whether it's video, audio, photos, something that you want to use as a prop, but engage your audience. Don't get into monologues and start teaching everyone about something. We are all adult learners. If you start telling everyone about time management, procrastination, we already know. So in case you have some activity regarding time management that we haven't done so far, we will be very much interested as audience. try to engage your audience with different sort of activities, one-liner questions. I have seen some of the teamers, they're asking people for experiences. Would you like to share your experience here? Would you like to share your experience for this one particular incident? Those are the questions that might fly off well with a certain kind of audience, but ensure that your audience is capable enough to answer longer answer questions with longer answers. In case your audience is not such, try to keep your questions as one-word questions. That works better. So these are some of the do's and don'ts. To answer Yogita's question, do we have time? Yes, the time is always mentioned in the agenda that this is the section where team audit is going to talk about his or her theme. And then the team audit is going to introduce the meeting structure, followed by so and so role taker, then followed by 5 minutes break, followed by again team audit introducing the theme, followed by introduction of table topic master. So that way agenda is there, and in the agenda it's clearly mentioned how much time you have, though the meeting might not go as per time, but it's there. Does that answer your question, Yogita, or any thoughts, any questions from anyone?
Yes, DTM Nancy, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Nancy, yes, I have one question regarding the role for the table topics. So, what I have observed, whatever the meetings I have joined, one loophole what I found that audience doesn't come up for the speaking on table topics. So, from your experience, as you mentioned, like one of the main responsibilities to come up with a simple and make it more and more interesting. Like every time, what I've observed, audience doesn't come and volunteer for the to speak on table topics. Either it's a guest or a toastmaster. Definitely, toastmaster will come at the end, but first we prefer to guest. First, we preference we give to our guest. So what I found that
Okay,
audience.
so what I'm understanding, Gunjan, your question is more regarding what if the guests are not volunteering for this? How spontaneously you need to handle the entire audience? What we generally practice here at the Gabbies is we first we first tell the table topic master that it's your room. You can invite anyone in case people are raising hands and you want to invite somebody else. Please go ahead. That's one. You own the audience. You pick people. You can always ask people to raise their hands. In case they are not raising their hands, you can always say that I will be picking up from the audience on my own because I am the master for a reason. Okay, so with that thought, not that you have to tell them, but with that thought, you own the room. That's one. Second, you first pick up a member. When you have guests in the meeting, go ahead with the demo for those guests so that they are not just answering with a one word to all the simple questions, or they are not just stuck with their thoughts. They should have a proper structure that, okay, this person spoke for so and so long. This is how I need to speak. So start with member, then pick up guest. Despite picking up a guest, in case the guest is not coming up on stage, you can say, you can share some encouraging words that it's okay. I will be giving you a simple topic. Try it. You need to try it at least once. Probably today is your first time, but there's no harm. So be very, very, very encouraging towards your guest. But before you move on to the guest, started with a member who is well versed with table topic section. Does it answer your question, Gunjan?
Yes, Nancy. Yes. Thank you so much. I
Thank
will
you so much.
definitely apply these in my next meetings.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you
Thank
so much for your question. We will be taking rest of the questions towards the end of the meeting. With this, I'll hand it over for the next four roles to distinguished Toastmaster Saurav Datta. He will be talking about the taggle team. Over to you, DTM Saurav.
Hello, hi everyone. So let's start with the taggle team roles. So the first one is the timer. I don't know what has been covered in terms of the importance of the role? Has anything been discussed?
Okay, so for we have covered SA, PO role, TMOD, TTM, GE. For these roles, we have covered what do we learn from these roles and what are the do's and don'ts of these roles.
Okay. So when it comes to the Taggle team roles, so these are some of the roles that we always have a difficulty filling up. Any Toastmaster club will resonate with me that it's always difficult to fill up these roles because often these roles are seen as small roles that doesn't add much value. But if you look deeply, each of these roles have a huge value in terms of the meeting and also in terms of our own learning. So what is the value that I'm talking about? So each of these roles, first of all, they give you an opportunity to do something like active listening. Okay, so all of us are listening during the meeting, but if you see the G, for instance, is probably the only person who has to listen to the entire meeting. But apart from that, none of the major roles require you to be fully attentive during the entire section. The TTM can take some rest and can attend to something else when the TT section is not going on. The TMOD also can probably be a little inattentive or distracted, can afford to be distracted when the speeches are happening or when the TT section is happening. The evaluators has to pay utmost attention when the speaker is speaking, but apart from that, we don't need 100% attentivity or indistractability from the evaluator. But these four roles need you to be indistractable and attentive during the entire meeting. And that is a very important exercise that we need to do. Indistractability and active listening are two of the skills which we definitely need for any of the roles that we are doing even in a professional life, whether you're working somewhere, whether you are a homemaker, whatever you are doing, these are the two qualities that define us as a person or as a professional. So when it comes to the timer role, and out of these roles, there are two roles which are there's one role. So even though the roles are all clubbed together under auxiliary roles, but if you look at it, each of these roles have a different way of operating. First, let's start with the timer. So the timer typically shows the cards, the green card, the yellow card, and the red card. The timer has two roles. One role is to give the speaker or the evaluator the timing cues. The second role is to report the time taken by each of the speaker and the evaluator. There is also a third role that most timers don't play, but it's always a good practice to play that. Any idea what is the third role? Anyone who has been a Toastmaster for some time, what is the third role that the timer should play, which we often don't see timers playing? Any of the veteran Toastmasters who have been around for some time?
Sir, to tell the evaluators about their evaluation timing.
That is what I said, right? That is one of the prime roles of the timer. One is to give the cues and also to report. But apart from that, what else should the timer do? In some cases, they do. In many cases, they don't. Yes, Saju?
Sir, is it that they can put it in the chat?
That is also the reporting it, right? So there are some people report on the chat, some people report when the GE is speaking. Some people do both of it. There is another important role that the timer plays, apart from reporting the individual times taken and also the giving the timing cues. There's a third role that is recommended. I see some very senior Toastmasters here, Sashank, Mukund. Any you would want to share your perspective?
Note down the start time of the meeting.
Very good. Yes. So that is something very close, I would say. Another role of the timer, which we don't do frequently, but we should do, is to keep a tab on the agenda. So it is the timer's job to let the TMOD or the TTM or the GE know how are they doing on time. Because the timer is supposed to quickly watch the agenda. Very carefully watch the agenda. Are we on time? So, for example, if the TMOD section, if a meeting starts at 7 p.m. and the TMOD has to hand over to the speaker by, say, 7:20 or 7:30, and it's already 7:35, it is the timer's job to caution the TMOD that, look, we are behind time by 5 minutes. You may want to speed things up. So the teamwork knows that they will have to reduce the script. Or for instance, if the table topic master is going on calling more and more table topic speakers, but we are already 10 minutes behind time in terms of handing over to the G, it is the timer's job to ensure that the G knows or the TTM knows that it's time that we call in, we kind of stop this particular session on table topic and move on to the next session. So that is one important role of the timer, which the timers do not play in most meetings. Now, coming to the two primary roles, the first one is showing the card for the green, yellow, and red. So the timer cards are downloadable from the Toastmasters website. You will find typically the cards look like this. The timer generally has a background, something like this. It is also a good practice to use something like a camera guard or a camera slider when you are playing a timer role, because most of the timers, they block the screen and you can't see the rest of what is happening. So green, yellow, and red, these are the timer backgrounds. So it is generally a good idea to not use any different backgrounds. We used to do that at the Gabbies at some point of time, and then DTM Iona was a general evaluator one day, and she brought it to our notice, very rightly so, that having different kind of backgrounds or too much of experimentation with the timer backgrounds makes it very difficult. It's something like this, that the timer background to Toastmasters is kind of pretty standard. And suddenly, if you are changing the traffic light to something that you don't know, for example, you're changing it from that big green, yellow, red to some sparkling stars or something like that, the drivers are likely to miss it. The same thing happens with the speakers and evaluators also. They're likely to miss the timer card if that's not something that they're familiar with. So that is something that we always recommend, that we use the standard timer cards. Again, as I said, like we used to do that differently in the Gabbies, but then we took the inputs of the general evaluator, and that's the role of the general evaluator to tell us certain things that we are missing. And it's the responsibility of the club to action those when the recommendations are good and useful for the members. Now, when it comes to reporting the timer role, it is always a good practice to use an Excel sheet where you should mention that what is the time taken, but it is not a good practice to read out every single role taker's time, because that way, for example, if there are say 10 TT speakers and 3 prepared speakers and 3 evaluators, and if you're reading out everyone's time, then it will probably be very boring, and also it will take a lot of time. You yourself will go over time. So what you can instead consider doing is talk about those times which are qualified or not qualified, number one, and also any special things about time. Like, for example, if an evaluator is taking 3 minutes 26 seconds or 3 minutes 27 seconds, they are still qualified, but it may be a good idea to warn them that you are too close to the red card, to the disqualification mark. So if you are going for a contest, it may be a good idea for you to wrap up a little quickly. Or if a TT speaker is going at say 2 minutes 25 seconds or 2 minutes 27 seconds, to warn them. Or if a TT speaker is speaking for just 1 minute, to tell them maybe you can consider speaking a little more so that you don't get disqualified. Because had you spoken for just even a second less, or I would have made a small mistake in terms of marking your time, you would have probably got disqualified. So giving those cues to the speakers and evaluators is also something that the timer should do. Also, when the timer is explaining the role, in many cases that the timers do not understand the disqualification parameters and they don't state it properly. So what is the disqualification parameter for a prepared speech? When does a speaker get disqualified?
When he exceeds 7 minutes?
No. The red card comes up at 7 minutes for a standard speech.
I mean, the 30-second grace time is also there.
Grace period. And what is the grace period on the other side?
Both 30 seconds before and after, both 30 seconds is there, I guess.
So 4 minutes 30 seconds and 7 minutes 30 seconds. That's the upper and the lower limit, including the grace period. Correct? To till that time, the timers and the speaker is not disqualified. What about table topic speakers? What is the grace period?
2 minutes.
2 to 3 minutes, same 30 minutes up and down.
1 to 2 minutes. 1 to 2 minutes and 30 seconds up and down. Are you sure?
No.
30 seconds
A
up.
second less than 1 minute is disqualified.
Yes, this is something very important for us to remember, that for table topics, there is no grace period on the lower side, which means that the minimum time required is 1 minute. So anyone speaking for less than 1 minute will be disqualified. And anyone speaking for more than 2 minutes, 30 seconds is disqualified. Now, one more important thing I want you to understand is that what does the word disqualified mean?
Not eligible for voting within the meeting.
Okay, anyone has a different thought to this? What does the word disqualify mean? In a contest, it means that you don't disqualify for a ranking, which means that even if you are the best speaker, you will still not be in the ranking because you have exceeded time. But when it comes to the club meetings, it is always a good idea, particularly if you are doing it as a guest role taker. If you're visiting another club and you're doing the role of the timer, it is always a good idea to check with the club officials that what does disqualification mean. There are many clubs who don't disqualify in the truest sense, which means that they don't bar them from polling, right? And the timer kind of cuts a sorry figure when they go ahead and say proactively, so you will not be eligible for polling, and then you see this person's name on the poll, right? So it's always a good practice because it's entirely up to the club. Like in the Gabbies also, till a very long time, we had this practice that we would warn the speakers that you are exceeding time, but we would not bar them from the polling. So that was to ensure that they are not feeling discouraged that, okay, I gave a good speech, but then it did not work out. And after that, the ExCom took a call that that's not a good practice because we are not getting them ready for the contest. Dealing with this heartbreak of getting disqualified because I was 7 minutes, 31 seconds is a part of the game, and they need to learn that. And that is the reason that we brought it back. But there was a time when the Gabbies did not bar speakers from getting polled or being a part of the poll, even if they were disqualified. So if you're going as a visiting Toastmaster or visiting role taker, always check with the club if that is the protocol that they are following. Any questions on the timer role? If you are taking a contest timer role, also keep in mind that some districts follow different patterns. So like, for example, if you go to District 124, District 124 has the practice of using screen share for timers. They don't show the background change. They use screen shares. So don't be very rigid about it that I will be going with this because this is what I've learned at my club. Because remember, the entity where you are being a timer, they will have their own rules. It does not matter what you do at your club. You will have to do what they do, because when you are giving the cues, you're not giving the cues for your own satisfaction. You're giving the cues for their purpose, right? So if you are showing the background change and they're more used to giving a screen share, then your background change is not being effective. So you may as well not show it for that matter, right? If you are so rigid about it. It is like saying that I will be speaking in Greek, even though you don't understand anything but Latin. So it doesn't really help. So you need to be a little flexible about this one, about how to show the cards. If you're going to a different club, so you can let them know in advance. This is how I will show the time. Hope that's okay with you. Sometimes what happens is that we do not have a timer card with us. So at that point of time, if you can use something which is of that particular color and you can bring it very close to this screen, that also serves as a, so like the way I'm holding the green, this is the yellow, I'm holding it right now, right? So this is a way for you to do it. Or for example, if you have got a pink or a red or something like that, if you hold a card, sometimes if you're just short on short on time, you don't have the background cards ready. Now, when it comes to an hybrid meeting, you have to be very careful that you know beforehand that who are the offline speakers, who are the online speakers. If you are showing the cards in a hybrid meeting on screen and the speaker does not have a visibility to the screen, then in that case, the speaker may not be able to see the card. You have to be careful about that. The second thing you need to remember is that when you are doing that kind of a setup where you have got a hybrid meeting, ensure that the speaker is pinning the timer. In a contest, it's a practice that's followed, and the contest master ensures that. But in a club meeting, you have to ensure that you are pinned. If you're not pinned, you can request the team to tell the speaker to pin you, and this is something that you should do well in advance. Clear? Any other questions on the timer role before we move on to the next role? Okay. So the timer role is a role, as I said, it has got three functions: guidance, reporting, and advisory. The next role, on the other hand, has got only two functions. One is reporting, and the other one is advisory. That's the reason it is called counter. A counter is something which counts. So our counters are supposed to be counting, and that is something. And why is someone counting? Why do we is an R counter an expert? So let me give a different example. I'm extremely bad at R's and ums. I use a lot of R's and ums. If there was an R counter in this meeting, they would have probably told you I used 20 maybe by now. So do I still qualify to be an R counter in a Toastmaster meeting? Do I? Why so?
Because you can catch what the others are doing.
Okay. So yes, so basically remember that the R counter role does not require any expertise. A lot of people, and why am I asking this question is because a lot of people tell me that I am very bad at you at R's and ums, so I will not take this role. So let me tell you one thing very clearly. You do not need to be good or bad in R's and ums, not using them for playing the R counter role, because this is a counter role. It is as simple a role as someone standing at the gate of a retail shop and counting the number of people coming in. That does not require any special skill. You just need to be attentive. You need to have a presence of mind, and that's the only thing. So every time someone says your mind should not be wandering somewhere else. You should be able to catch that and make a note of it. Still, every R counter will have a 20 to 30% miss, which is totally okay. And that is not a problem. But you should not be distracted that you miss most of the R's and you end up saying that Saurav had no R's and ums in the meeting. Because that would be a disaster, because the rest of the people who are watching Saurav and are hearing him using R every second word would then do not trust your report at all. They will say this person was not paying attention. So this is something that you need to be really careful about. When you're reporting the R's and ums, it is always a good practice to not report the exact count if the numbers are embarrassingly high. Like there are meetings where I would have probably used 50 hours. And when someone said, 50 hours was used by DTM Saurabh, and just 2 minutes before someone introduced me as saying that I've completed 9 paths and blah, 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 it doesn't really add a lot of feather to my cap. It takes away a lot from my cap rather. So to avoid that embarrassment, maybe a better idea that I've seen a lot of general evaluators recommend is to put as 5 plus or 10 plus to give an approximate idea that this man was horribly bad in terms of usage of ferns and fillers, but leave it at that. The idea is to make him cautious, not to make him embarrassed. So that is something that we should consider. The R counter should always have an Excel sheet. There is some R counters I've seen they read out saying that sort of use so many R's, sort of used, so many ums and goes on talking about it. But it does not really help unless you have it as a chart in front of us. What are some of the ferns and fillers that we use in a meeting? So ferns and fillers that we use generally are the CRPF, the crutch, the repeat, the pauses, and the fillers. The crutch words are the ones which we use to as a crutch when we are not able to think something. A good example of that is a so. If I'm not, for example, let me think. So this is a crutch word where I'm using so as a crutch because I'm not able to think what we are using. The second is a repeat where I'm repeating something just for the sake of it. For example, I sometimes use this often at times. So if you see I often, these are the usage which we are calling repeats. Pauses are the abnormal pauses. Sometimes because we are very conscious about not using ferns and fillers, we go the opposite way where we use a long pause, and the audience doesn't know that whether anything is coming after this or not. Is the speech done? There has been times when people have started clapping thinking that the speech is over, but the speaker was actually still thinking. And fillers are words that we use to fill the gaps when we don't have anything meaningful to say. A good example of that is I know, you know, we know, etc. So these are some of the things that we use in a Toastmaster meeting as CRPF: crutch, repeat, pauses, and fillers. when I said that the accountant role is a reporting role and also an advisory role, the reason I said that is it may be a good practice for you to advise people how to use less of R's and ums, and also give them some guidance on why certain people use more R's and ums, or why do we use an R's and ums in the first place. So someone can help me understand that why do we use R's and ums? What is the reason we use R's and ums when we speak? Why do we use ferns and fillers? Is it a problem of language? Are we not good enough?
I don't think it's language. It's when you have nothing in your mind, when you've not thought for that period of time, and that's why you're not able to articulate it.
Exactly. In fact, I have seen that people who are more proficient in English language, they generally have more R's and ums for the simple reason that their rate of speaking is much higher than the rate of thinking. And because the rate of thinking is slow and the rate of speaking is fast, there is a significant gap between the two. And hence, people end up using more R's and ums to fill those gaps. A very evident proof of that is if you watch the table topic speakers, you will notice that the first 1 minute, the R's and ums usage is very less. The next 1 minute, the R's and ums usage is very high. Because the first minute, they speak very confidently. If I ask you something like this, why are you wearing the color you are wearing today? You will immediately, okay, I'm wearing blue because blue is my favorite color. I absolutely love blue. Whenever I wear blue, everyone compliments me and I'm so happy about it. And everyone is happy that I'm wearing blue. And you are done. After that, you start thinking. And when you start thinking, then you start using I know, because you have long pauses. So this is nothing but a gap between the thinking skill and the speaking skill. Now, this gap can only be reduced in two ways. One, you improve your thinking skills. Two, you reduce your speaking skills. Which of this is more doable in the short run?
Speaking.
Reducing the speaking skills, right? That is how you reduce the delta, because you cannot improve your thinking skills. You cannot pace it up overnight. Overnight, you can't start thinking fast. So you should try to reduce your speaking skill, because if you reduce your speaking rate, not speaking skill, I'm sorry. If you should reduce your speaking rate or the pace of speaking, the speed of speaking, because if you reduce that, then automatically the delta will go down. In other words, speak slowly. When you speak slowly, you use less of R's and ums. So whenever I'm generally very unmindful about this, but when I decide to be consciously mindful about it, I reduce my speaking rate from an average of 120 words a minute to as low as 80 to 90 words a minute. And that definitely helps in. So every meeting, I've actually done a bit of an A/B testing, where in some meetings I've used a speed of 110, 120, and the accountant invariably has said that I've used a lot of R's and ums. And in some meetings, I've used a speed of 80 to 90, and the accountant said that congratulations, Saurabh, for not using any R's and ums. So it is kind of proven that if you are speaking slow, you will use less of ferns and fillers. Any questions on this, on the accountant role? Okay, moving on to the grammarian's role. Now remember, the timer's role is an advisory role and a counter role. The counter's role is more of a counter role and an advisory role. The grammarian's role is predominantly that of not only, it needs some preparation. Contrary to that of the accountan's role, you don't really need to have a preparation beforehand. You need to come into the meeting with your mind attentive and you are in the moment. In a grammarian's role, you need to prepare for it a little bit. What do you need to prepare? The first preparation starts with selecting the word of the day. What is a good word of the day? How do you select a word of the day? What are some of the qualities of a good word of the day? Can some of the senior Toastmasters or new Toastmasters also, you have done a lot of meetings, you guys, so you can tell me what are some of the qualities of a good word of the day?
If it is in sync with the theme of the day.
It should be in sync with the theme of the meeting. Okay, what else?
And then probably not so difficult that people cannot use it. At the same time, something which adds on to their vocabulary also.
Something which adds on to the vocabulary. So should not be an everyday use kind of a word. Like I, me, you, and this cannot be word of the day, right? Because That way you will never keep able to keep account of how many times it has been used. What else? I'm still looking for that one quality, which is the most important quality. No one? Rajesh, Anukul, Kunjan, Smriti. Can you think of something more?
Easier to
The
adapt
adjective.
and pronounce.
Easier to pronounce. Very good. Okay. What else? The most important one, it should be an adjective. It's always easy for a person to use an adjective in a sentence than to use a noun or a verb, because an adjective can be incorporated more easily on the fly. I'm not saying that every meeting, every word of the day should be adjectives, because then that way, club will only grow up learning more adjectives and not nouns and verbs. But I'm saying that if you are selecting a word of the day for an unfamiliar audience, it is a good idea to use an adjective, because adjectives are easier to use as a word of the day. So as all of you mentioned, the first quality of the word of the day should be that it should be in line with the theme of the meeting, because the Toastmaster meeting has a theme. Second is that you should select a word which is easy to pronounce. What if the word is not easy to pronounce? Do we not use that word of the day? How do we tackle that problem?
Guide them towards the right pronunciation at the beginning itself.
Exactly. So when you're introducing the word of the day, just don't say the meaning, just don't say the etymological root of the word. Instead, also try to make them use the word of the day at the very beginning, asking them to unmute themselves and pronounce the word. Second is you should always put the word on chat, because sometimes our own pronunciation has a bit of an accent. And sometimes it's difficult to understand the word of the day. So putting the word of the day on chat is always a good practice. Also, when you're putting the word of the day on chat, I've seen many a times people put the word of the day along with the message, along with the meaning, along with the usage in one single message. Maybe consider, I've seen that option better when you put the word of the day in one message in capital and put the meaning and the usage, etc., in the next message. That way, I'm not hunting for the word of the day in your long message where you have explained everything about it. So then that takes my attention, right? That gets my absolute focus. The word of the day should not be very difficult, something that people of India would know, Sashi Tharoor kind of English. That's not very useful. It may sound really attractive, but it serves little purpose. On the other hand, it should not be a very common use word, because then you are not really adding value to anyone's vocabulary. Now, one more thing about the word of the day is that when you are talking about the word of the day, it is always try to make it more interesting in terms of the usage, in terms of the etymological roots. If you tell the etymological roots of the word, it gives some perspective and some history. Some words have a very good story behind it. So if you tell the story, people will remember the story. How do you make people use the word of the day more in a Toastmaster meeting? What are some of the best practices that we can share? Anything that you have from your club?
Uh, can I say some? I'm sorry if you're hearing a
Yes, please.
background noise, but I'm driving.
That's okay.
Back.
Please tell me.
So one practice that we followed was to write the word of the day on a piece of paper in large font, maybe large font, and keep it right in front of the speaker. I don't know if that distract that person in any way, but it used to keep reminding whoever used to be on the stage that this is the word of the day.
Yes, in an in-person meeting or in a hybrid meeting, this is something that we can definitely try. Putting the word of the day in large font and put on the speaker's dais or wherever the speaker is standing and speaking. Another practice could be to write it on the word of the day. I've seen Bangalore Toastmasters Club do that. It's a very good practice to write the word of the day on the whiteboard. So everyone who's walking up to the stage, so the way they have the stage set up is that the whiteboard is on this side, people come from this side, so they're actually seeing the whiteboard when they're entering the stage, so they see the word of the day and is written in pretty large font for people to pay attention to. What about online meetings? What are some of the best practices that we can share? What do you do to make people use the word of the day?
Can the grammarian use it as his?
Manvi, you can go ahead. I'll take. Oh,
Okay, so I was saying maybe a gentle reminder by other role players like TTM and others.
very good. Very good. Okay. What else? Gauri, you had the same point. You raised your hand and then you put it down.
Yes, use it when you are speaking, when you have the chance to speak.
You have the chance to speak. Use it yourself. Lead by example. Mukund, you were saying something?
I was just trying to say that the grammarian can use that as a screensaver or
Okay.
not a screensaver, as a background. Yeah.
Yeah, and even in some clubs, I've seen timers keep that on their screen, okay, at the bottom saying that this is the word of the day, because you can ignore everyone's screen, but you can't ignore the timer screen, right? So put it at the bottom of the screen of the timer. That's another good best practice. One of the other things that I have seen working, I've tried it a couple of times when I was the Toastmaster of the day, is to use it when you are asking the speaker to do the audio video testing, right? So say, for example, the word of the day. Give me a word of the day. Can anyone give me a word of the day? Any word of the day. Don't make it too difficult that I can't pronounce. The idea here is for me to not embarrass myself.
Symphony.
Symphony, right? So, for example, when you are doing the audio video testing, instead of saying that, can we do a quick audio video check? Am I, then the speaker says, am I audible? Am I visible? Now this am I audible line has become the, the butt of many jokes. So we can rather replace that and say that every speech is a symphony. 1, 2, 3. Right? So what is happening is that everyone of the speaker is being reminded during the audio video testing itself that they can use this word of the day. They're getting used to the word of the day. Not only that, everyone who's listening to the speaker also gets to be reminded of this multiple times. If there are 3 speakers and 3 evaluators are doing it, so when you're doing the audio video check, instead of asking them to just say, am I audible, am I visible, they can say something like this: every speech is a symphony, 1, 2, 3. So that way it is easier for people to remember and recall the word of the day. Any questions on this, the word of the day? Please remember, there are some Toastmaster clubs, particularly in US and Canada and even in Europe, there are separate word masters and there are separate grammarians. And on the other hand, in some clubs in Singapore, the grammarian role and the word master role and the accounter role is clubbed together and called the language evaluator. So depending on which part of the world you are attending the meeting, the expectation from the grammarian role changes. So if you're attending a meeting in a different geography, and if you see a new role defined there, right? For example, grammarian / language evaluator, don't assume that, okay, they call the grammarian the language evaluator. The expectation from the role is very different. A language evaluator is supposed to comment even on the usage of ahs and ums, because there is generally no separate accounter. On the other hand, if you have a separate word master, it is not your job to count the word of the day usage. It is the job of the word master. When the word of the day is used, we tell them to give a show of hands. Can you tell me why?
Active listening.
Who was that?
Gauri.
Lovely. Very good. Yes. So we generally say, as a mark of encouragement, please show a thumbs up. That's the stated agenda. The real agenda is that every time when you are giving a thumbs up, it means that you are being attentive in the meeting, right? So if I'm using the word symphony and every time you're giving a thumbs up, it clearly means that you are paying attention to the speakers, right? So remember that there is everything that we do in Toastmaster, there is always a real reason of learning behind it, a solid reason behind it. Okay, now let's move on to the grammarian's other role, which is to mark the sinful and seductive usages of English language. I am using this word very consciously and cautiously because we as a grammarian are not there to watch out for the correct and incorrect usage always. For example, India, a country I love, is an incorrect usage as per English. As if you go by Brendan Martin, that is absolutely a nonsense usage because we are putting a pronoun, proper noun first, and then the correct way of using it is I love India, right? India is my country I love. something like this. But saying that India, a country I love, is not a grammatically correct usage. But is it a sinful usage? No, because in a speech that creates the dramatic effect. Who was looking after me? My mother, my sister, my father, my brother, my family. Absolutely a horror when it comes to Dan and Martin or any grammar book. This is not how you construct sentences. That's how what I have been taught in school. But we are not writing essays here, we're giving speeches. And a speech is an extension of a conversation, right? In a formal setting and with a defined purpose. So here you will need to understand that your job is not to identify only the grammatical mistakes. I'm not saying to ignore them, but I'm saying that don't be too focused on whether the sentence is constructed correctly all the time. Because sometimes there's something like a literary license. Similar to that, there is a speaker's license as well. So you will have to give that to the speaker. Now, when we are when we are identifying these usages, we need to look for good words that are used, good phrases that are used, good proverbs, any kind of quotations that are used, and also usages of rhetorical devices. I do not want to give a huge lecture on what rhetorical devices are right now. That itself is probably a subject of almost an hour's discussion. Post this meeting, we can always share a list of the rhetorical devices that we generally use. There is a grammarian's file that we use, and we have a video also for that. I can share that video, which is a more of an explainer video. At the end of the video, there is a QR code where you can access that particular file which we use to capture this, which has a list of all the rhetorical devices. Rhetorical devices are nothing but devices that we use in the speeches to accentuate the quality of the speech, build in more drama, more effect. Try to identify the usage of rhetorical devices, because rhetorical devices makes a speech powerful. If you identify them, you are learning them and you are teaching them. Some of the common rhetorical devices that we keep looking for: one is alliteration. Alliteration is when you're using the two words and they have the same starting letter. For example, the Jubilee Jasprit. The speech by Jubilee Jasprit absolutely gave me a joyful journey. So joyful journey, Jubilee Jasprit are alliteration. The next is hypophora. A hypophora is where you're asking a question and then you give an answer. Each of us here are here to know how to be a better grammarian. Am I right? Absolutely. Otherwise, why would you be here still now? So this is a hypophora where I did not wait. On the other hand, there are rhetorical devices, rhetorical questions. A rhetorical question is where you don't need an answer. For example, who doesn't want to be a good speaker? It doesn't need any answer. If you don't want to be a good speaker, you will not be in the meeting of Toastmasters. So rhetorical question and hypophora are different. Be very clear whether it's a hypophora rhetorical question or an actual question. If you are using it as a hypophora and you give a long pause between your question and your answer, the audience may hijack your speech. It happened in a very recent meeting of the Gabbies, where the speaker used a hypophora, but they gave a slightly longer pause. And even before he could come up with a question, with his answer, someone from the audience gave an answer which was absolutely different from what he was expecting or prepared for. So that kind of put him in a quick spot. The speaker was brilliant. He was able to recover very quickly, but for some of us, that could be an unnerving moment. So if it's a hypophora, keep the gap very small. Ask a question and then immediately answer. Don't give any pause of more than 10 seconds or more. That doesn't really serve the purpose. Now, apart from that, there is the rule of three where you use something thrice. Like, for example, I am here to learn, unlearn, and relearn. This is a rule of three. These are very common usages that you will find speakers using. Apart from that, there are more complex ones like epithets and epizeuxis and anaphoras and so on. The other two common ones, the first one is hyperbole. Hyperbole is an exaggeration, extreme exaggeration. Can some of you give me examples of hyperboles? Oh, first of all, hyperbole is one of the top 10 mispronounced words in the world. The word is written as hyperbole. The spelling of the word is Hyperbole. And it is pronounced by many people as hyperbole, including some of the grammarians. And there can be nothing more ironical than as a grammarian if you're mispronouncing. Huh? If you're telling me I should use more of hyperboles, then I'm actually going to find it really funny. So it has to be pronounced correctly. It is hyperbole. Yes, Iona. Iona, you had a question? See your hand.
No, I'm sorry. I raised it in error. I
Not,
apologize.
not a problem. So hyperbole is extreme exaggeration. Can someone give me an example of what is a hyperbole?
I have told you this 1,000 times.
I've told you this 1,000 times. No one has the patience to tell something 1,000 times, and even if you have, no one will have the patience to listen to it 1,000 times, except for maybe Alexa. What else? Couple of more examples. Yes,
My feet are killing me.
my feet are killing me. Yes, they are not that powerful. They're not that. Yes, Iona, I see your hand raised again.
I'm so hungry I could eat a horse.
I am so hungry I could eat a horse. You can't, unless you're a lion. Even I heard that lions need a whole pride to eat a horse. So, what else? But some more common ones, the ones that we hear and say more often. I'll tell you some.
I was starved to death.
I was starved to death. Yes, okay. Gauri?
Can a very thankful be a hyperbole?
Very thankful, not necessarily. If you're extreme exaggeration, right?
Okay.
It should be very clear it's an exaggeration.
I
I
love
can
you
give
to the
my
moon
arm
and back.
and
Yes, I
sorry.
love you to the moon and back, right? With Valentine's Day along the corner, this hyperbole will be used a lot, right?
I can
So
give my arm and leg for this.
I can give my arm and leg for this. Lovely. What else? The one which is most commonly used in a Toastmaster meeting, this is the most amazing speech that I've ever heard. Right? And I've generally seen that evaluator mention the same in his every evaluation in every other club. I've never heard a speech better than this. Right? Are you for real? These are some of the things that we say as hyperbole. Depends on how you're saying it. If you fake well, people will believe you. That's why some of us get lucky on Valentine's Day, right? People do believe us when we say that I love you to the moon and back. But if you don't fake well, then good luck to you. The speaker will not take you seriously. As a grammarian, your job is to not judge the speaker on that. Your job is to let the others know that this was a hyperbole. If the speaker is using it too many times, pointing it out may be a good exam, good practice, because there are some speakers who come and say the only thing, particularly hyperboles are used a lot by evaluators. They only come and say amazing, right? This was the most amazing speech. What amazing insights. If everything was so awesome. So always alert the evaluator that this was too much of an usage of hyperbole. Try to reduce it. Quite the opposite of hyperbole is litotes. What is litotes? A litotes is understatement. This one is an over exaggeration. This is an understatement. Can someone give me an example of a litotes?
Your speech is not bad.
Not bad. This session was not so bad. Okay, what else? You can always say that this session was good, right? But you decided to be a little of a miser in terms of appreciation. So you said it's not bad. So that I stay grounded. What else? A very common one. Yes, Iona.
It's not rocket science.
It's not rocket science. What else? I wouldn't disagree with him. I can say I will agree with him, right? But I am saying I wouldn't disagree with him. So basically, if you're using two negatives to convey a positive, it is a litotes. Not bad, not is a negative, bad is a negative. You're using together to make it convey a positive. I wouldn't disagree. Wouldn't is a negative. Disagree is a negative. Negative plus negative is equal to positive. Clear? So this is the litotes. So these are some of the common ones. Let me quickly repeat. Alliteration, where the same two words are used starting with the same letter. Two words are used starting with the same letter. The second one is the rule of three, where you're using a string of three words. Then I talked about the hypophoras, where you're asking a question and then immediately giving an answer yourself. You're not asking the audience for an answer. It's basically for you to give an answer. Then you have got rhetorical questions, which we use to ask a question which doesn't need an answer. Like, anyone here who doesn't feel hungry? Obviously, no one will say yes, right? Not at least at 9 p.m. India time. So therefore, this is something that is again a rhetorical question. And then we have got hyperbole, and then we have got litotes. That these are some of the examples that we shared. There are many more. There are 40 plus rhetorical devices. Don't break your head in terms of knowing the names. It's more important for you to understand the usage and point out the usage. Obviously, for pointing out the usage, you will need to know a name. So somewhere the name has to sink in, but that's not the priority number. The immediate priority. The immediate priority is to identify this. That was a rule of three. That was an alliteration. That is more clear. Any questions on the grammarian role? The grammarian also has one important responsibility, that is to report pronunciations and enunciations. Any good, appropriate, and inappropriate pronunciation. When you are reporting an inappropriate pronunciation, please, though, be mindful about the difference between usage of mispronouncing a word and a mother tongue influence. These are two different things. Okay, there are speakers who will have a mother tongue influence that makes it. First of all, let us get one thing out of our way. Every single person on this earth has a mother tongue influence, including Arnold Schwarzenegger, including Steve Jobs, Narendra Modi, anyone that you can think of as brilliant orators. Each of them have a mother tongue influence. It is not a shame for you to have a mother tongue influence. So never put down a speaker saying that you have a Tamil accent, you have a Telugu accent, because the person who's saying has got a North Indian accent, right? So please do not do that. What you need to do is you need to differentiate between a mother tongue influence and a mispronunciation. For example, school, if you're pronouncing that sir as sir, that is a mother tongue influence. Certain parts of India, they don't do that. Or if you notice any Tamils here, so Tamilians generally do not pronounce H, they pronounce it as G. So they don't call it Yamaha, they call it Yamaga. So this pronouncing H as G is a mother tongue influence. On the other hand, pronouncing school as iskul is a mispronunciation. Pronouncing cabin as cabin is a mispronunciation. Pronouncing mustache as mushtaq is a mispronunciation. So mispronunciations has to be corrected. Mother tongue influence, if it is too heavy, you have to say it very mildly. Never ever embarrass a speaker saying that, oh, you sound so Indian, oh, you sound so American. That doesn't make anyone feel good. It actually makes you look really bad. Okay. Anything else on the grammarian role? Quickly moving on to the listener role. The listener has not been one of the must-have roles in a Toastmaster meeting, but nowadays people have started having a listener role, more so because we are doing meetings in a hybrid format or in an online format. So it's very difficult. Like, for example, I don't know out of this 15 people who are there right now, who are actually there, and how many of them are actually got the screen on and they're not there, right? So the best way for me to test if people are actually there is to ask a set of questions at the end and then report back that how was the listening skills in the meeting. Most people who take listener role, they do the first part, they don't do the second part. They don't say how was the listening quality of the meeting. So you should be reporting it. Remember, it's a reporting role. So you should be mentioning at the end that I asked 5 questions and you were able to satisfactorily answer 4 of them. So we have done well. We can definitely do better. I asked 5 questions, you answered all the 5 of them, and there were multiple people who were able to answer the questions. So clearly you are good listeners. I asked 5 questions, only 2 of them you were able to answer. So you can clearly see there is a scope of better listening, right? So that's a listener role. Now, when the kind of questions that you're asking, 2 things to keep in mind: always ask close-ended questions. Close-ended questions are questions like, Which year did the speaker say he moved from his hometown to abroad? That is a close-ended question. What are the things the speaker did when he moved to abroad? That's an open-ended question. The second one is an absolute no-no. In some cases, the listener asks this question and they would have missed themselves 2 or 3 points what the speaker said. And that's total embarrassment. So ask close-ended questions. Which, what was the number of the car that the speaker was driving? A close-ended question. What was the emotions the speaker was feeling while driving? An open-ended question, not to be asked. The other thing is, don't ask questions which can be answered without attending the meeting or listening to the speech. For example, if I am giving a speech tomorrow at the Gabby's meeting on the Republic Day celebrations, and you ask the speaker as a listener, when is India's Republic Day? Right? No one needs to attend that meeting to answer that question. And it doesn't definitely show that we are good listeners. We just show that we are informed about what's happening around us. So that's why always ask questions which can be answered only if you're attending the meeting and paying attention, not questions which can be answered through general knowledge. So that's it on the listener rule. That's it on the tagger rules. If there are no other questions, I would hand it back to DTM Nancy. Go ahead.
DTM Saurav, I have one question on the timer rule.
Yes, Mukul.
So in one of the clubs I used to frequent long back, not Smedley's, another club, the timer had this practice of clapping the speaker out if the speaker exceeded the 30 seconds grace. So the timer simply used to start clapping if the speaker, exceeded the 30 seconds grace. What is your opinion on such a practice? I was clapped out in one of the speeches, and I felt a little bit humiliated.
Is that being respectful?
Is that being respectful?
Yes. Would you?
I don't know, because that was the practice, and everybody used to take it in their stride whenever it used to happen to them.
As a visiting Toastmaster, when you were clapped out, did you feel respected?
No. As I said, I felt a little bit insulted.
Any club has a practice, and you're doubtful whether the practice is a good practice or a bad practice. Ask this question: is it violating any of the Toastmaster values? If it is, then it is not a good practice. What should you do about it? Depends on what role you are playing. If you're a speaker, you have been clapped out, you are being asked for a feedback at the end, you can say that this is something that is new to me. Probably for people who are visiting your club, this may come as a surprise. So maybe it's a good idea to educate. If you're a general evaluator, you can probably be more direct and say that this is at the borderline of violating the Toastmaster value of respect. So I would request the club to look at it. Whether the club takes the feedback or doesn't take a feedback, that's their problem. That's not something. See, we cannot change the club practices. Every club is independent. But if they're practicing something, like there could be some club there where they have a culture of hooting speakers or, wooing speakers who are using ahs and ums because they feel that is the right way of discouraging them from using ahs and ums. Can I stop them? No. But is it respectful? Definitely not. So that's it. So see, in this case, the clapping is not a clapping. It's actually a booing. Just that the currency of booing is clapping, right? So if you're booing speakers for whatever way you're doing it, if you're booing speakers by singing a song also, or by booing speakers saying that every time a speaker exceeds time, we will say, you are an amazing speaker, right? That is not appreciating. That is ridiculing in a different currency. It still is being disrespectful. If it is being disrespectful, it is against the Toastmaster values. If the club still wants to go ahead and inculcate that, that's their problem. Unless I am a member of the club, I can't change it. I wouldn't change that. I may decide not to attend the meeting again. That's the only thing I can.
Got it. Thanks, DTM, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions from anyone? Okay, back to you, Nancy.
Thank you so much, DTM Saurav, DTM Nagesh, for insightful session today. With this, we have come to close of this session. Any questions that you have regarding any of the roles before we adjourn the meeting? Okay, I'll take this silence as a no. In case you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out. Yes, TTM Iona.
So Nancy, I do understand that different clubs do different things, and in Gabby's we do things differently. And I watched it, and when I took on the role of general evaluator, I was a little bit confused. So, pardon my grammar right here. It would be helpful if we had a checklist that the general evaluator does this. The Toastmaster of the day introduces the speakers or introduces the speaker's objectives. And when I took on the role, I was very confused and a little bit taken aback.
Okay.
So my suggestion would be it'd be helpful for even a visiting Toastmaster or a Toastmaster's been around for centuries, that they just follow the list, because every club does it differently. And then it's flawless rather than having a meeting before prior. You could just go to the checklist and say, do this, this, this. Just mark off. But that's my suggestion. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much for this suggestion. Yes, TTM Saurav, you want to add on to something?
So I hear you, Iona. I think it's a very fair point. What we do in the Gabbies is we have a briefing document which we share with the role takers and we brief them. Even in some cases, there's a briefing call also. But you're bang on in terms of it's not about being experienced. People are actually trying new things just to make their meetings more interesting and more lively. I have been to clubs where there are 2 evaluators or 3 evaluators of the same speakers in advanced clubs. So there are various ways people have got joke master roles in Toastmaster meetings. So I think it's a good practice for us. So point well taken, and we will definitely, as the VP of the Gabbies, I can assure you that every feedback we get, we take it very seriously. And the proof of that is the timer background, Iona. So we will definitely take it very seriously. But having said that, we do follow this practice. We are actually trying to make it better. This session is actually one of the reasons we are doing it is that people who are missing the briefing, they get a comprehensive understanding to get prepared. So the recording will also be shared. I'm pretty sure this would have been covered in the big 3 sections. So
I don't want to prolong your session, but I do have one more suggestion, and this is for online timers. When the timer is just raises his hand or her hand, and they move to the left of the screen. So when the speaker does an audio video check, also ask them, can you see the timer? And then leave it at that. So therefore, if I'm watching it on my iPhone, which is already 4 inches, and I'm not seeing 2 inches of a stamp, but the speaker can see the timer and the rest of the audience can focus solely on the speaker. That's just a suggestion, and I don't know if this is the forum to say it, but of course I know you're looking for thoughts. So that's my other suggestion. Thank you for listening.
All right. Thank you so much for the suggestion. Our VP has already noted down both the wonderful suggestions that you have shared, and we'll put those in practice going forward. Thank you everyone for your time today. I hope you got some insights on the different roles that we covered. For any further questions, we will take those questions offline. Please feel free to reach out to our XCOM team. If you are part of our guest group and you're joining from there, just feel free to reach out to any of the group admins. Rest of you, I already see that you are connected with us. Please feel free to reach out in whatever way suits you. Thank you so much once again. With this, I adjourn this educational session, this little briefing session that we had today. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.